Something else here, the fact that the body was dismembered, and I feel horrible saying this because you've got this beautiful girl on the screen who really should still be here, but her body was dismembered, and it seemed to be, the way they had described it, the medical examiner, very badly decomposed, which to me kind of indicated that it had been there for well over a month.
It started as a smell, thick, sour, wrong. A yard worker followed it past sun-bleached bumpers and broken glass until he saw the matte black Tesla sitting a little too still. Windows dimension, frunk sealed, heat pressing down like a lid. Impounds collect stories. This one felt like it was holding its breath. When the latch finally clicked, the air changed. No shouting, just the quiet people make when reality moves faster than belief. A routine tow turned into a problem with a pulse, and then into something colder. Phones came out. Radios crackled. Names were whispered that didn't belong in a place like this. By nightfall, the car was more than a car. It was a riddle with a charging port, a place where a journey ended and a different one began. Paperwork didn't help. Procedures didn't help. The only thing that did was the question no one wanted to say out loud. Who put the secret in there? And why did they think the city wouldn't notice? The answer wasn't in the trunk. It was already out there, on flyers, in lyrics, on a hillside house that liked to keep its lights low. And once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. But that wasn't the only secret writing in that car.
New details now in a story we've been following for nearly 2 weeks. Singer David has canceled the rest of his U.S. tour after a girl's body was found in the car of his car at a tow yard.
The plate that lit up. The license plate wasn't just numbers and letters, it was a fingerprint. Texas tags, black trim, a luxury car that looked out of place among dented sedans and rusting tow-ins. When the Vian hit the system, the name behind it lit up like a flare, Nova Vale. He wasn't just another 20-something with a label deal. He was the playlist darling, the boy with the funeral voice and a face that sold midnight moods to millions. His songs lived in headphones late at night, where heartbreak feels like prophecy and gloom becomes glamour. For industry execs, Nova was the future. For fans, he was already everything. From sweaty basement shows to arenas where kids screamed every word, his rise was meteoric. But fame is a strange currency. One minute it buys you billboards and brand deals. The next, it chains your name to something you can't outrun. Success is loud, but silence after is louder.
Website, I've gone down these rabbit holes. You look at these lyrics, okay, of Romantic Homicide. I have them right here. He has a line where he says, "In the back of my mind, I you and I didn't even regret it." One of his music videos, I think, he's carrying a casket, or people are carrying a casket. He just seems to have this very sick fascination.
The vanishing months. Before the Tesla drew headlines, a girl named Selena Reyes stepped off a sidewalk in her quiet suburb and disappeared into thin air. 16, sharp-tongued and fearless in that half-grown way teenagers wear like armor. She left her house with a backpack slung over one shoulder and never made it back. Her photo ended up on flyers taped to gas pumps and pinned to corkboards in corner stores. Neighbors remembered her laugh, the way she'd grab a soda and chips before walking home. Police called it a missing person case. Her family called it a nightmare that wouldn't end. And then there was the detail no one forgot. A tiny tattoo on her right index finger, 3 simple letters. SH8. It was small enough to overlook, until Nova Vale appeared weeks later in glossy promo photos, flashing the same ink on his own hand. Coincidence? Maybe. But grief doesn't believe in coincidences, and timing never feels accidental when the silence is already heavy. But that wasn't the only parallel about to surface.
Division is investigating this case. They still have not said it's a
Correct.
meaning that they don't know the cause of death. Obviously, yes, the body was dismembered and was, where the parts were in a bag that was in the Tesla, but they don't know.
The lyrics, everyone missed. When news of the Tesla broke, fans didn't just scroll, they listened. Every lyric, every verse Nova Vale had ever written suddenly felt like a breadcrumb. Lines that once sounded poetic now read like coded confessions. A verse about voices disappearing, a chorus about secrets buried deep. One track even repeated the phrase, "my heart in pieces," like a mantra. At the time, it was just heartbreak pop. Now, it was something else. A script people thought they had missed the first time around. Then came the whispers. Leaked DMs, grainy audio files, talk of an unreleased track rumored to carry a chilling title, Selena. Was it real? No one could prove it. But when a name tied to a missing girl shows up in a star's unreleased catalog, questions don't need proof to multiply. Fans split into two camps. Some swore Nova had been leaving a trail in plain sight, bleeding truth through music disguised as art. Others called it paranoia, coincidences stacked by grief and gossip. But once lyrics start to look like evidence, it's impossible to hear them the same way again. And investigators weren't ignoring the noise. They were listening too. But the lyrics were just the start, because the story wasn't written in songs alone. It was hiding in a house on the ridge.
Always quiet, nice. She come in like if she buy like a chips, soda, and leave.
The house on the ridge. Perched above the city like a watchtower, the house looked ordinary enough by day. Stucco walls, tinted windows, a driveway that curled just out of sight. But after dark, the place turned into something else entirely. Neighbors whispered about late-night deliveries, bass thumping long past curfew, and strangers drifting in and out without ever being introduced. It wasn't just another celebrity crash pad. Locals knew the house, and not for good reasons. Noise complaints piled up. Lights flickered at odd hours. Some swore they saw figures carrying boxes into the garage when the rest of the block slept. Most brushed it off as Hollywood excess, until the warrant came down. Detectives swarmed the ridge one evening, flashbulbs catching their faces as they hauled out bags of electronics, hard drives, and equipment. Neighbors peeked from behind curtains, trading rumors before the boxes even hit the evidence van. The Tesla had been parked there once, they said. Same car, same plates, weeks before it vanished into the maze of the hills. And if the lyrics were breadcrumbs, maybe the machines inside that house carried the recipe. But the house wasn't the only thing collapsing. The fallout was just beginning, and the first cracks showed up in the industry itself.
Now, in a story we've been following for nearly 2 weeks, singer David has canceled the rest of his U.S. tour after a girl's body was found in the car of his car at a tow yard.
He was scheduled to perform tonight in San Francisco and tomorrow night here in Los Angeles. This comes as police investigate the death of a 15-year-old Celeste Rivas, who was reported missing from...
The music didn't stop because Nova Vale pressed pause. It stopped because the world around him yanked the cord. Overnight, brands that had fought to plaster his face on billboards suddenly tore it all down. The sneaker deal? Gone. The soda campaign? Deleted before sunrise. Even the festival slots he was headlining were wiped from lineups like he'd never been booked at all. Tour dates vanished one by one, quietly pulled from ticketing sites. Fans who had counted down for months found nothing but refund emails and silence. Industry chatter said the calls came from higher up. Not managers, not promoters, but corporate giants too afraid to gamble with their golden goose once the smell of scandal hit. In boardrooms, executives weren't debating music anymore. They were debating survival. What contracts could be shredded? What insurance clauses could be invoked? What evidence needed to be buried under NDAS before someone leaked it? Crisis managers always preach 3 steps: distance, delete, deny. And that's exactly what the industry did. They distanced themselves from Nova. They deleted every trace they could control. And they denied knowing more than ongoing investigations. But erasing a name doesn't erase the questions. It only makes them louder. And while the industry scrambled to protect itself, the car that started it all was quietly retracing a path no one could ignore.
The LAPD spent 12 hours searching a house where David had been living. So big developments this week. Sources say they were looking for blood evidence in the house and the garage. Neighbors remember seeing the Tesla regularly parked at that house, and it was abandoned and towed to an impound lot.
Or the car's quiet route. The Tesla didn't just vanish into an impound lot overnight. It left a trail, almost like someone wanted the city to notice, but not too soon. Neighbors in the Bird Street swore they saw it drifting from one curb to the next, never parked in the same spot for long. One morning it was in front of a glass-walled mansion. By evening it had slid down the block, tucked behind hedges. A valet claimed he spotted it near a rundown repair shop, its matte finish coated in a film of dust, the kind you only get when a car is left too long in the open. Days later, another witness swore the same plates appeared outside a shuttered strip mall, headlights dead, as if daring someone to ask why it was there. The route wasn't random. It was deliberate. A pattern of short stops and longer gaps, moving just far enough each time to avoid attention, but never so far that it disappeared completely. To police, it looked less like panic and more like choreography, a maze drawn calmly, as if someone believed Los Angeles itself would hide the secret forever. But secrets don't stay buried in a city built on cameras. Every move the car made only deepened the mystery. Was it being shuffled to buy time? Or was someone leaving a breadcrumb trail, daring investigators to keep up? And when the boxes of evidence were opened, the trail grew darker, because what lay inside weren't just devices, but memories frozen in digital frames.
People in that neighborhood were aware of this house, and not in a good way. We've heard a lot of people say that there were a lot of noise complaints. In fact, this is really strange, is the latest one was last weekend. Now, clearly David was not there in the house, but somebody was playing loud music, and there was a complaint about noise.
No one saw inside the evidence boxes. Investigators found what everyone expected: phones, laptops, hard drives. But the surprises weren't in the hardware. They were in the files. Metadata doesn't lie. Dates, times, and locations lined up like pins on a map, telling a story no one wanted to read. At first, the photos looked harmless. Nova Vale in hoodies, Selena Reyes smiling in blurry kitchens, the kind of snapshots teenagers post without thinking twice. But when investigators layered the data into a timeline, the smiles stopped looking casual. They looked coordinated. One image stood out above the rest. Nova's hand, fresh ink still red and raw, the letters SHH scrawled exactly like Selena's. Side by side, two fingers pointing to a secret they never said out loud. It wasn't proof, not yet, but it was proximity. And in cases like this, proximity is gravity, pulling everything closer until the story can't escape the weight of its own evidence. For investigators, the photos weren't just memories, they were signals, and those signals pointed toward a question darker than anyone wanted to face. Because if the pictures were real, then maybe the stage persona wasn't just performance, maybe it was a preview. And that's when the case shifted from rumor to reckoning.
It's very clear we're gonna get to the bottom of this sooner than later. They are closing in, and it is heartbreaking to see these images of Celeste now, knowing how she came to her end, but to see her at a very young age in this sort of Hollywood circle, you just wonder how it got to that point for her, and you hope the police can.
The question no one wants. On stage, Nova Vale's darkness was costume. Painted blood, funeral flowers, lyrics steeped in loss. Off stage, the question lingered. Was it really theater, or had the mask slipped into something far more real? Fans loved to be haunted until the haunting stepped off the stage. Suddenly, every casket prop, every lyric about vanishing, every tattoo felt like more than art. It felt like a warning everyone ignored until it was too late. Investigators stopped treating the case like background noise. They began to treat it like a reckoning. Witness lists grew, timelines stretched. Every silence, from the family, from the label, from Nova himself, now sounded like coordinates pointing to something no one wanted to admit. The industry could erase his name. Neighbors could dismiss what they saw, fans could argue coincidence, but silence stacks. And when you pile enough silence together, it builds a shape you can't ignore. The real question was no longer what happened. It was, how much of it had we already been shown, disguised as entertainment? And that question left only one door open, the conclusion no one wanted to reach.
Didn't just remove shows from his website, also forced to remove some creepy merchandise from his site. So for people who don't know, David was selling a line of button-down shirts with bloody handprints on them. And Lauren, this wasn't like a Halloween thing, right? It was because one of his biggest songs called Romantic Homicide.
The Hinge everyone held a piece of the puzzle. Fans held the lyrics and tattoos, swearing they were clues hidden in plain sight. Neighbors remembered the car parked too long in the wrong places. The industry held its silence, scrubbing Nova Vale's name as fast as lawyers could type. And investigators, they held the patience, letting the pieces fall into place one by one. Was it all performance, or was it prophecy disguised as music? The truth may never arrive in one clean headline, but the echoes are already here. A car that wouldn't stay put, photos that shouldn't exist, lyrics that sound different now than they did before. What we know is this: silence doesn't erase questions, it only multiplies them. And the louder the silence grows, the harder it is to ignore the shape it takes. So, I'll leave you with this. Where do you draw the line? At what point does art stop being performance and start being a warning? Drop your take in the comments. Stay curious, stay sharp, and remember, not every song is just a song.